Hi everyone, an impromptu live and an unusual time of the day for me to go live because it is my work day, but I thought I would pop on. I had a cancellation this morning and I missed chatting with everyone. I've been doing little short form videos for the last little while, well, a couple of weeks, and I have done a few lives, but it's not been as hectic a live schedule as usual. So I thought I would hop on and see if anybody is around. So if you're around, say hi. It's just an impromptu live today, just a little chat and maybe a catch up on some of the crime scene stuff that I've been talking about. I've had lots of comments and questions and lots of engagement with those videos. So happy to have a chat about those. I was going to say face to face, well, face to text. So thank you for joining the people who are lurking. Please say hi. We're friendly here, and hopefully some of the regulars will come in as well. I didn't put any notification out, so I don't expect it to be super busy, but I still thought I would hop on and see if anyone was around. So I've been talking a lot about the crime scene at Delphi over the last couple of weeks now, which was interesting. Hey, Donald, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Uh, yeah, I've been talking about the crime scene, and it's interesting because I hadn't seen a lot of deep diving into the crime scene. I'd heard, obviously the typical debates about the sticks and, why the bodies were placed the way they were. And that was kind of what got me down that rabbit hole. And then I realized that there was so much more to talk about. So the last few videos I've done have been around the crime scene, what it tells us about the type of offender that would commit a crime like this, and most specifically, the last one was about the sticks. So it's a super contentious issue. I've noticed a lot of people commenting on both sides of the equation around it. So, yeah, I thought I would just maybe see if we could address some of those questions in a little bit more detail. So, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, or if you just have any thoughts or observations as well. I really have done so much research and deep dive into the crime scene now and into crime scenes in general. Hey, Jenny, nice to see you. Really good to see you. Yeah, so apologies too about the lighting. I'm going to set up my proper camera soon so that I have a better kind of setup, but I'm in my clinic room and there's a window behind me. So it kind of looks a bit ethereal, but not the best lighting. But anyway, hey, Jesse, nice to see you. Thanks, guys, for joining and chatting. If you guys have any thoughts or questions about the case in general, but particularly the crime scene and the sticks, that's kind of what I thought we would focus on today in the live. I'm only going to be on here for about half an hour because I've got to get into my working week. It is Monday morning here in Australia. I think a lot of you guys are probably still Sunday night, I'm guessing. So, yeah, let me know where you guys are all from. I'd love to know whereabouts you guys are living. A majority of people around are American, the majority of people who watch my channel. But thanks for coming in. It's nice to see a steady flow of people coming in. Please say hi. It's just an informal live today, a bit of a chat, no presentation. I'm going to put some slides up on the screen from the videos because there's some talking points, but mostly wanted it to be interactive. Hey, Shanae K, thanks for coming in. I've seen you comment on a few of my videos. Really appreciate your engagement. Texas, amazing. I've never been to Texas before. So I have been to the States a few times, but I have family that live in San Francisco. Oregon for you, Jenny. Okay, interesting. Yeah. My buddy Didi is in Oregon, I believe. I haven't been to Oregon either. I've been to San Francisco, LA, Las Vegas, New York, and Philadelphia. I think that's everywhere that I've been in the States so far, but planning another trip to the States probably in the next couple of years. My kids would love to go to Disneyland or Disney World. So we'll see. We'll see. So welcome. Oh, Didi lives near you, Jenny. Awesome. Awesome. I just remember Oregon. I have no idea where Oregon is. I apologize, guys. You guys have so many states. It's hard for me to kind of locate everyone within that. So I barely know the east and west coast, to be honest. So apologies for that. But yeah, I'd love to come visit again at some point for sure. Yeah, my kids are desperate. So what time is it for you guys over there? It's 9:51 a.m. here. You're half an hour from Delphi. I remember that, Donald. You're really close to yeah, close to where this all happened. Have you been into to Delphi? Have you been to the bridge before, Donald? I'd be curious about that. I think it would be so useful for me to be able to go there and actually see it in the flesh. Yeah. Oh, Mustang, nice to see you. Everyone's coming in now. Of course, guys, it's afternoon there, isn't it? I forgot. I mean, you guys are really way behind me. It's not even evening there yet. Goodness, 4:51 p.m. So you guys are still enjoying your Sunday and you're all chilly, I'm guessing. It's pretty cold over there, everyone keeps telling me. And over here we had a massive heat wave over the weekend. It was yay, hey Scott, I missed you guys. I haven't spoken to you guys over the weekend. It's really nice to see you. So Scott and I are in the hot summertime over here in Australia, but you guys are all freezing and chilling yourself. But we had a really hot weekend here. It was 40 degrees. It was sticky. It was like, yeah, so 40 degrees, I believe, is 104 degrees Fahrenheit. I figured that out yesterday. So yeah, yeah, Donald, it would be really interesting. It'd be really haunting, I imagine, going to Delphi. I really would love to like to go. I definitely think if there's a retrial of Richard Allen that I will absolutely want to attend. So I'll probably go then. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't know how I would be in Delphi. I just don't know. People have told me things about what it's like around there. And given that I'm an advocate for Richard Allen and have been critical of the investigation, I think I'd be a little bit scared about that. And also, I don't know if I mean, people have told me that there is still some like some level of racism, and I'm sure it's not everybody, of course, but yeah, I'd be curious to know how safe it would be for me to go. So maybe I'll have to bring a few of my friends with me. Who of you guys are going to come with me to Delphi? Scott, you in? I need some bodyguards. Um, yeah, so yeah, I'd be really curious. I had a dream about going to Delphi once actually, and being at the trails. Yeah, I think it would be super super haunting. Okay, well, yeah, you'll be in. Yeah, Scott, you're going to come be my bodyguard in Delphi. Perfect. Mustang, you coming to Delphi with us for the retrial? Hey, wait a minute, I'm going with you guys, and you think Rick's guilty. So what are everybody's thoughts about the sticks? I did see, Jenny, you mentioned something up about the sticks, and then we kind of got off track. You think the sticks are really telling? I didn't get it till I saw the crime scene pictures. Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I mean, we haven't all obviously seen the full scene. We've seen the recreations of the pictures, the sketches. So I can only imagine. I mean, I know some of us have actually seen the photos as well that were leaked, but I don't know, obviously, that they would be the only photos. So it's hard to tell, really. But from looking at the depictions that people have drawn, I think the sticks are pretty telling too. Yeah. So actually, well, let's do a poll. This is just a really quick live, everyone, because I am at work and I had a cancellation this morning. So I thought, I'd get on here and have a bit of a chat with you guys, but I won't be here for long. So I'm just going to open up my YouTube so I can do a poll. You don't think there'll be a retrial, Mustang? Yeah, you don't think that there's any compelling appellate issues? Well, there you go. We've got a few poll questions we can put up. Okay, now I have to concentrate. I can't do two things at once, everyone. I'm like one of those people. I struggle to juggle two things at once. So let's. Okay. Now, quite clearly, I can't because I just had the sound on my YouTube at the same time. Okay, right. Let's put a poll in. Okay. So, start a poll. Actually, let's start with, do you think the appeal will be successful? You're at work on a Sunday, Shoni. What are you doing at work on a Sunday? That sucks. Hey, see through. Nice to see you. Oh, I literally missed all of you guys. Like, I'm so used to having a chat with all of you so often, and it felt like it's been days since we've had a good chat. So nice to see you. I think it's so funny because the majority of the people who I get on super super well with in my community think Rick is guilty. Isn't that funny? Because I always talk about you guys like Mustang, See Through, Scott. A lot of you guys think Rick is guilty. Cryptex. So interesting, isn't it? We can still be friends from other sides of the fence. Amazon. Okay. I can see why that's 24/7 then, Shoni. Scott, maybe I'm just infiltrating you guilters so that I can make you all see the truth. I'm one of those people, the people that come around, the Mormons with the Bible, coming around and seeing trying to change you guys. But you guys come to me. I'm not chasing you. You're coming to me. Only joking. Um, I don't think that it will be overturned. I think that there's a potential for a retrial. I mean, yeah, they are rare. They really are rare. Oh gosh, if it's not, like, I don't know. I'm kind of hanging my hat on thinking that it's going to be that the appeal's going to be successful. Goodness, if the appeal's not successful, it's even longer for the people who believe Rick is innocent. I was talking to my son about this the other day, as you do. We were in the pool on the hot afternoon and we were talking about this, and he was like, I can't believe it's going to take this long. Yeah. Oh, see-through, you reckon I am? Honestly, no. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm like at 99% innocent. I can't say 100% because I don't think anyone can say 100% either way. Well, I think you could if, we had a video of him perpetrating the crime or a video of someone else perpetrating the crime, which we're not going to have, clearly. But yeah, I don't think anybody's going to shift my opinion on this. I'm getting firmer and firmer on it the more research I do. I can't believe you guys. I'm like not shifting you guys at all, but at least you still come in and you want to chat, right? Yeah, Jenny, I hope so. I hope this is one of those ones. It's interesting. So yeah, we got a 60-40 split on the poll. I think is that because we got more people who believe he's guilty in here today? Shoni, I think you believe Rick's guilty too. Am I right? Or am I getting the wrong person here? I'm guessing, Jenny, you think he's innocent. So are we being ganged up on here? Is it just Donald does think Rick's innocent too, don't you, Donald? I'm pretty sure. No one's outing themselves. Yes, I doubt I would change my mind unless there was some new evidence that comes out, which I don't really believe there will be. So, yeah. Mustang, yes, I would probably be one of those people, except unless they have new research. What am I saying? New evidence at the trial, then maybe I wouldn't. Goodness, so we've got a whole group of people who believe Rick's guilty in here today, all attracted to the Richard Allen Justice Project. That's funny, isn't it? I always say that I'm very proud of the community having the mix, though. I think that that's a good sign that we're not an echo chamber in here because everyone in here is willing to hear the other perspective, which is huge, I think. It speaks a lot to who we are. Hey, CA, nice to see you. CA, what do you think? Do you think that Rick is innocent or guilty? Well, you know what? Why don't we do that poll now? So let's end this poll. So it's nearly 50-50, 45-55. Dita, yay! Another one of my faves. So I was just saying, Dita, I missed you guys over the weekend. So yeah, like Dita, Scott, Mustang, See Through. You guys are my regulars who come in here all the time. And like when I'm not talking to you every day, I kind of miss you guys. And I'm terrible at my direct messages and emails. Apologies, Dee. I'm pretty bad with those, but I think about you guys and I missed you. I was busy doing like real life stuff, which was actually not as interesting as this. Yeah, Shoni, so you believe he's guilty? Yeah, okay. So let's end this poll, and I think we're getting a bit more of a mix in now that Dee's here. So I hope that we can have. Oh, what am I doing? I'm doing the wrong thing here, guys. Give me a sec. See, when I try and talk and do this at the same time, I mess up. Okay, so do you think Rick is guilty? There we go. And it's binary. Everybody's got to say yes or no. No 87% and stuff like that, Scott, okay? Yes or no answers only today. It's good to see everybody. I hope you all had a lovely weekend. I had a super, super busy weekend. I had my work Christmas party, which was nice, but it was super loud. And I'm a talker. I like to talk, and the loud music was like stopping me from being able to talk, which was a bit sad. But it was still nice. It was nice to go out. We had lovely food, and I got to spend lots of time with my buddies. Just say yes, Scott. If you believe he's most likely guilty, say yes. If you're over 50% thinking he's guilty, say yes. And if you're over 50% thinking he's not guilty, say no. See, I knew it. I knew that we were outnumbered in here today. Look at that. We're outnumbered. So I know that we've got 8 votes. The no, he's not guilty is me, Jenny, and Dita. I know that for sure. So what's the percentage? I think out of 8, how many people? Oh, look, I'm not doing the maths now. Anyway, this is a really funny live today. It's just a chat, guys. I'm used to being like so organized with my lives, but I missed you guys, so I thought I would pop on and say hello. So I'm curious to see what everybody thinks about the sticks video. Scott, did you watch my sticks video that I dropped after my Christmas party? I know, Mustang. Usually you guys are outnumbered. I know, but I don't know. I don't know why, but I'm quickly becoming like more like having more guilt people. I'm trying not to call you guys the guilters. But I'm starting to see more people who think Rick's guilty coming in here. I think it's fair to say that a lot of people who think Rick is innocent are not fans of me. So there are some, but there's a lot that aren't. So okay, we're getting a bit more even, 56 to 44. Come on, 5 more people need to vote. You still disagree, Scott? Come on, no. No, I made a good argument about the sticks, I think. Okay, next poll. Next poll. Okay. You know what, guys? We're all intelligent. No matter what we think, we can be intelligent. Okay. I think at the end of the day, your belief systems about this case have probably got nothing to do with your intelligence. I think that there are biases, that's for sure, but very intelligent people can still be biased as well. I've been biased. We all can be. I think this is more a case where it's about knowing your biases, knowing your emotional reactions as well, and not relying on common sense is probably the other thing. So much, like I've said, folklore that goes around, and that still is the thing that I kind of get stuck on. But plenty of clever people can believe folk science because you can't be an expert in everything, right? Do you think the sticks were concealment? Start the poll. Here we go. So interesting because it doesn't matter what I say, I get the same questions, or not even necessarily I get the same questions. I see the same questions go around over and over again. And it's not the people in here right now, because you all I know are within what, I don't even know what I'm saying. When I read the chat and try to talk at the same time, I say silly things. Everyone in here I know actually listens to what we talk about on the lives and in the videos. And so you don't ask the same questions, but I see the questions asked over and over again. And I'm like, guys, I've been talking about this for weeks. So one of the questions that gets asked over and over again is about the phone. And how did the phone battery reduce? Now, they don't usually ask me this, but I've seen it again pop up on social media, and they're like, the phone can't just, die so quickly, but then stay alive till 4:30, whatever it is. And I'm like, please, guys, look at the cold shock theory. It was so well researched. I'm so proud of the cold shock theory because I said so well researched, it came from me, but I researched so much to come to that conclusion. It was weeks and hours of reading and looking. Hey, Erin, so good to see you. Nice to see you in here as well. But yeah, the cold shock theory, guys, like I spoke about it so much, and I still see like people have not even like engaged with it at all as a possibility, and it's so sad. It makes me really sad. It's not because I think I'm always right about things, but I do so much research, and I think it's so consistent as an explanation. I mean, when you can get like three different AI platforms agree with a theory, even though you're posing it to the AI platforms as though it's a silly theory, I think, we did that on a live. I just think I don't get it why people won't buy it. They still rather buy that Cecil has deleted items from the Knowledge C spreadsheet, which is not an easy thing to do. I don't know. Yeah, I guess the more you look at it, the more you would see that in order to tamper with the Knowledge C data, you'd literally need to have you need to work backwards from the cold shock theory, essentially, which is impossibly hard to do. Hey, Four Pits, nice to see you too. Yeah, so it's mind-boggling when I feel like people don't even listen or engage. Like I said, it's no one in here. You guys are wonderful, and you will chat and engage. And even if you disagree, I know you've engaged. But yeah, I guess this principle of some other, I guess, creators and people who are quite high profile on social media who just continue to not engage with other people's work. I think that's really sad because I think that's where we get more and more bias. So, yeah, okay. So, yes, Scott's comment is important. Cecil didn't have the battery info till 2024. Exactly. So, in order to fiddle with the data so significantly that you can make it look like a completely different theory would take like exceptional know-how, right? Now, I don't think that's the case here, particularly given Cecil didn't know that audio output route change means an internal route change to the speaker. So, if he didn't know that and he had to Google that, which would have helped their case, it would have helped the state's case to say, there you go, headphones were not inserted, then what are the chances that Cecil knows how to doctor the entire document, right? It isn't possible to me. So the cold shock theory is the most realistic, reasonable explanation of why that phone drops battery so suddenly and why it dies at 5:45 ish, and the rest of the stuff is the flicker back to connect very briefly to the tower. So if anyone's interested in the cold shock theory, please go back and watch all the lives. Yeah. Um, so CA says, where did the person live? We don't know. Yeah. I mean, my sense would be the cemetery, to be honest. Yeah, I don't believe that it was somebody parked at the CPS, walking all the way there. I think that's, to me, that doesn't sound realistic, given the amount of people that were around. Yeah, I believe it would be the cemetery, somewhere back around there. Yeah, see how you agree. It's good to hear. Yeah, Scott and I agree on this. We agree on the cold shock theory, don't we, Scott? We agree on a lot of things except Trick's guilt. So I know the cold shock theory isn't. It seems like it's not favourable for Rick, but it's nothing to do with Rick. It's just to do with the fact that if, regardless of whether the phone dies or doesn't die, doesn't really make a difference. The headphones theory has been debunked as well. So again, another lot of research that I've done, that there is no headphones being plugged in to that phone. It's not a headphone event, it is an internal speaker routing event. So just, you can see here why I'm not an echo chamber and I'm not biased, because if I were, I would just agree wholeheartedly with everything the defense says, which I don't. I think that there are better arguments that can help Rick than the headphones idea that isn't realistic. I think that the girls died at the scene fairly early, and they lay there all night. And I think they were hidden, not by sticks though, but because they were in that sort of slight depression. And also I don't think anyone was viably really looking on the other side of the creek, because at that point they didn't think that the girls had, had met with that sort of a fate. And on top of that, we've got to remember that the families went to the police at 5 o'clock. Now, the daylight would have been would it even still have been light at 5 o'clock? I don't know what it's like over there. Here in Australia, when you get to about 5 o'clock in the middle of winter, it's starting to, yeah, it's starting to get darker. So yeah. So for me, I don't adhere to any particular argument that was raised necessarily at trial. I have my own arguments. So Shoni was talking before about the girl with the dark hair. I think somebody else was mentioning about Rayleigh as well. So I am going to do a video soon about the three girls because I do think that's another point that comes up over and over again. I did do some early timeline videos. I say early because it was months ago, before the channel had as many viewers. So they were pretty long and they were in the early days of me streaming. So they're probably a little bit convoluted, but I will do a shorter video about the three girls. I do believe Rick does see Riley for his and her sisters, but I don't believe he sees them at the time that they see Bridge Guy. So I will explain that in more detail over time, but basically it's a memory thing. It's the fact that if you read his the transcript of the interview or you listen to the interview, he talks about running into them as they're coming off the trails, heading back to where the cars are parked. And the cars that he talks about are parked at the Mears. So I believe he actually walks past them around the trail split area. I think they're walking around taking photos, being funny and silly because we know that's what they're doing at that point. And I think he walks past them. He's a smaller man. He's more nervous and anxious and awkward and doesn't really like to be around people, particularly probably in more unstructured environments. So that's something we can talk about too, because I have theories around his profile, and I can't diagnose him. I've never met him, and that would be unethical. But I would have queries about neurodivergence, as would my my colleague Ash, who's joined me a few times to analyse the case. And if that's the case, what we know about certain types of neurodivergence is that there could be a comfort when you're in a situation where you have a role, for example, like your retail role, because you know what's expected and what you're meant to be doing. But when you're in an unstructured environment, like on a trail, when you thought there was going to be no one around, particularly not kids, and there's kids around, I could see how that could be quite stressful for Rick if some of my theories are correct about his personality. So C3, he said he saw them coming off the trails heading towards where the cars were parked, and there were no cars parked, he said, where he was located, where he parked, which I do believe was the CPS, and the old car park, the new car park on the other side of the Freedom Bridge, I think wasn't there at the time. So they didn't say that, Shoni, but what you will notice in Bree Wilbur's testimony is she does say that they saw one or two people as they were coming back from the what was I going to say? When they were coming back from the Monon High Bridge. So they did say, Bree particularly said she saw one or two people. So they just didn't remember the other person. And that wouldn't be unusual that they wouldn't remember Rick because he probably wouldn't stand out. So, yeah. Whereas they did say they saw Bridge Guy because he was more imposing. He had a bit more of a threatening vibe about him. And our nervous system has spidey senses, essentially, like we see and we feel when something feels a bit awry. So I think they saw Bridge Guy and Rick. Jenny says the phone data doesn't say. No, so Jenny, we've looked at the phone data and the Knowledge C data in a lot of detail over, probably, hours and hours of lives. And the reason that I think it dies at 5:45 is because we don't see any more screen on and off events after that. We see screen on and off events up until that point. And in fact, the audio output route start is another indicator potentially that the phone dies. It starts to prepare for the call from Becky Patty, and then the phone dies. And so it never gets to end the audio output route change, which it does then later, which I think is an artifact when the phone comes back to life. So yeah, there's reasons why the data does speak to it dying at 5:45, but it's there's so much. There's just so much in that phone data to kind of sift through and analyze for sure. Okay, so let's look at. I forgot to read the poll for the sticks. Okay, so the sticks were concealment. So 38% believe that they were, and 62% believe they weren't. So I don't know if many of you guys have watched the video that I put put up over the weekend, which was about the sticks. But it was really interesting because when you actually read the testimony, so Cicero, who is a highly experienced crime scene investigator, he actually indicated that he thought that the bodies were concealed by the tree, not the sticks or the branches. And in fact, when he was asked about that, and the defense said it was 3% coverage, he agreed and said that there would be better things around that could have concealed the body. So he did not believe that the sticks were a form of concealment. Olahay does, but he also concedes that he made that assumption, but realistically, he recognized that there were very few sticks covering the girls. So interestingly, the state's experts, the crime scene investigators, did not indicate that the sticks were coverage of the girls. They were talking, Cicero, who was the one who was primarily responsible, was talking about the tree obscuring the view from the creek and the private drive, not the sticks. So that was really interesting. I didn't actually know that. I had always assumed, because people had talked about it so much, that maybe the state were suggesting the sticks were coverage. Maybe I'm not suggesting that some of law enforcement didn't suggest that, but the experts, particularly Cicero, did not say that, and in fact conceded that there would have been far better things to cover the bodies with if that was the goal. So interesting, that one. Just going back to the questions. CA says, did any of the witnesses say they saw a short man? No, they didn't. Yeah, they didn't. And even I guess in terms of, was he wearing the same sorts of clothes? Potentially. I mean, Rick doesn't remember exactly what he was wearing. He's guessing. And I think the very fact that he guesses his clothes as being similar to Bridge Guy is actually really kind of a suggestion that he's not very suspicious, is he? Because if he's this cunning, manipulative person that you pretty much need to be the perpetrator of this crime, then you would expect that he's cunning enough to say that he wore something different, and he didn't. He hadn't told Doolan what he wore, so he could have made up any story about what he was wearing that day. So yeah, and also you've got to remember that the girls, I'll bring that back up when we look at the timeline again soon, but the girls also described different clothing. Didn't one of them say it was all black? So okay. Shoni says, I'm mistaken. Saw them. Yeah, so I think what's really confusing is that back then, particularly, the trail split was often called the trailhead as well. So I guess when you hear his specific words, he says they were coming off the trail, going back to where the cars were parked. And the only cars he ever mentions are parked at the Mears lot. He talks about a sedan and an SUV. So he doesn't mention any other cars. So I guess they could have been heading off towards the Freedom Bridge, but that sounds unlikely given he didn't think that there were any cars at the Freedom Bridge. And also given that the theory is he parked at the CPS, he wouldn't know that there were any cars parked at the Freedom Bridge side. There was no car park there back then, and Old Camden Road is far off, and he said, even if he parked there, he said he didn't see any other cars. So to me, the timing as well is far more consistent with him seeing the girls as they're heading back towards that bench. And it's interesting, the reason I have that timing as well is because the small black car seen at the CPS is mostly seen between 1 and 2. So Teresa Liebert, and who's the other person that sees the car there between 1 and 2? Feel like there's somebody else, but yeah, so my sense is that he's on the trails between 1 and 2, and that's how he would not see Betsy Blair and not see anybody else, none of the second lot of people. He wouldn't see the girls, Abby and Libby, but he would see the 3 girls. So to me, that timeline makes a lot of sense and is fairly consistent with the very first report he gave, which was that he was there between 1 and 3. Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, Jenny, you don't believe that they were there all night? Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the phone got there. I do believe they were there all night. I think that the bodies were incredibly hard to see, not because of the sticks, but because of the positioning of them. And given that the true searching didn't begin till, the light would have been pretty poor. I know they did restart again in the morning. It is hard. It is hard to understand how they didn't see them, but I'm not sure where exactly they were searching. They didn't see the clothing in the creek either. So, yeah, to me, the suggestion is that they just maybe weren't looking in the right area. I don't know. Yeah. But I do also believe that it's a bowl kind of depression in the ground as well where they were, and there was a tree apparently that was quite good coverage, I suppose. So it was hard to see them. So somebody in the comments to my video had said about what's the guy's name? The trooper who got called to come over to the bodies, and he nearly tripped over them. So yeah, it was Sean something. I forget his last name, but yeah. So I think they were hard to see. Yeah. Okay. Just going down. Yeah, Shani, I think he says, I think they were going back to, but look, we'll look into this more. I want to redo the timeline video. Maybe we'll do that. Goodness, this week's pretty busy because I've already got some plans of some videos to do, but I will try and get onto that. Maybe we'll do a live. The next couple of weeks will be a lot better because it's going to be holidays soon. So I'll have some time to talk about that. So yeah, for sure. We'll look into it. But my sense of what he's saying is that they're heading back to where the cars are parked and they're coming off the trail. So I wonder if he means they're coming off the 505 or the 501 rather than near the Freedom Bridge. He doesn't really talk about seeing them near the Freedom Bridge. I don't think that Rick goes on the Freedom Bridge, of course, because I think he parks at the CPS. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, the blood evidence is tricky, isn't it? It's hard to know, Jenny. It's hard to know what was going on and whether any cleaning took place as well. So Donald says, I don't think that the girls were not there during the search. So yeah, you feel that the bodies were there all night, Donald? I think is maybe what you're saying there. Scott saying the blood was absorbed into the sweatshirt. Yeah, it's hard to know. It's really hard to know what was happening with the blood there. Yeah, we will. Let's do that. We'll play the interview. We'll read the transcript for sure, see through. I think that'd be a really good idea. I want to go over his interviews anyway, because I find lots of, gems, I suppose, in listening to the words that he actually says. Yeah. Okay. So Donald, you're with Jenny. You don't think they were there that night. Yeah. Okay. So I guess for me, the reason that I think that they were there that night is because of the phone initially, but also because the crime scene appears to be the place that the girls were murdered. And I can't understand a perpetrator bringing them back to that scene to murder them in the night where there was still people searching and around. And because you'd need a torch, you'd need light then, because you're not going to be able to do all of that in the dark. And so then wouldn't people have seen? That's just my supposition, of course. Yeah, I feel like they were there all night. This is probably why I have people who believe Rick's guilty more in my chat sometimes than people who believe he's innocent, because I think I very much kind of take this different approach to what a lot of the people who think Rick is not guilty do. But yet I still firmly believe Rick is not guilty. I believe this is a sadistic offender, and sadistic offenders can act pretty quickly and quite stealthily. I believe that the girls were murdered within about 45 minutes of them being abducted. Yeah. And the lividity, the bodies is consistent with that too. There are no markings on their bodies to suggest, a degree of movement. Yeah. And what would be the purpose of taking them away and then bringing them back? I don't really know, because it doesn't appear to have been any sexual abuse either. I mean, I'm not suggesting that there couldn't be some sort of assault at some point. Yeah. No, Shoni, don't worry. I won't be. I'm not part of that group. They don't like me, so no. I really. So I guess anyone who doesn't know me, but I think everybody in here does, but anyone watching will know that I try to just take an evidence based perspective of what's actually happening in this case and go where the evidence leads me. And the evidence initially, I was on the fence, so I guess for a long time I wanted to believe Rick was innocent. I just had that feeling based on his psychological profile. However, I was also willing to go where the evidence went. And so I've really battled with the timeline, with the Hoosier Harvester stuff, with the phone, the crime scene, all of that stuff. And I was on the fence up until probably about 9 months ago now. So last year, this time, I would have still been on the fence about Rick's innocence. So, but the last 9 months, I've been very convinced based on all of that research I've done. And then the more research I do over time, the more convinced I get. I think that there's so much misinformation out there on both sides of the equation. And I think that also taints the way that we see the case. As you guys will have seen, there's been an evolution for me of some ideas because initially I believed things that I'd heard on the grapevine that weren't actually correct. So yeah. Yeah. So I know there's some various conversations going on in the chat. So really good to see you guys all just engaging. I'm not following everybody. So yeah, I'm with you, see through. Yeah, I can't see why they would bring them back. Also, particularly because it does appear that the girls did actually pass away at the scene. So if they were bringing them back, they would be bringing them back and then hurting them. And by this point, we would expect maybe that the girls would be screaming. So I know that that's another thing that comes up all the time. I don't believe that the girls screamed initially. I think that they were in that freeze response and then maybe a fawn response trying to appease the person. And they were so scared that they went into what we'd call tonic immobility, where, basically it's what we call flop. The body just doesn't respond and doesn't react. And so I don't believe that the girls did scream. But if they had been held for hours and then brought back, then maybe the fight and flight response would have kicked in because they'd had more time to kind of I don't know, adjust to what was going on and seen it as their last chance for escape. So I believe if they were brought back alive, I believe they probably then at that point may have screamed, because at that point, they would have known that they were in mortal danger and there was, that was the only chance they had. Whereas in the early stages, they didn't know and they probably tried to comply. That's just speculation. We never know how someone's going to act in a situation like that, which is the point that I always raise when people say, well, why didn't they scream? They would have screamed, they would have run. It's like, well, you don't really know that. And in fact, that's not the most obvious reaction in a situation like this, particularly for two teenage girls who were trapped and vulnerable. Yeah. Yeah, Dita, it is confusing, isn't it? It is confusing because you're right. Instinctually, you put your hands up, which is what you see in Libby. And this is where it's like, was there some sort of restraint? I think it was Scott who suggested that. Maybe that the sweatshirt could have been, yeah, I think the sweatshirt maybe was restrained of some sort, potentially. Yeah, because we know there's no obvious restraints. I think there was a sort of line on the face, but there wasn't a lot of obvious restraint. But I do believe that there was some sort of control mechanism there because, yes, instinctively you'd put your hands up. Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, if the hands are still in the sleeves, yeah, could her hands have been held behind her back or in front of her like that? I don't know. I don't know. It is really sad, Shoni. It makes me feel sick, even imagining what the girls went through. Just so, so sad. So I guess in terms of the Franks memo, with the sticks, I do believe that there is something going on with the sticks. But what we also need to understand is that ritualistic symbolic elements of sadistic crime don't have to be related to a particular belief system. So we don't have to believe in Odinism. Yeah. You don't have to believe in Odinism in order to see this as a sadistic, ritualistic crime. Yeah, Dita's talking about the sleeves. Yeah, I wonder, Dita, It is basically, I think, like what Scott's saying, is maybe the hands were in the sleeves and the hands were like held so that she couldn't actually like reach out. And this person would have overpowered her as well. It's heartbreaking. It's really heartbreaking to think about everything that went on in just, and I believe in such a short period of time. Yeah, but I do believe this is a sadistic offender. This is not, a man who panicked because he was attempting to sexually assault the girls and then killed them in order to save himself, because he had a gun potentially. If we're to believe the state's theory, why not just use that, or why not just stab them and run? Like, it doesn't make sense to the bodies. I know that Scott will disagree with me, but the bodies are posed. That is not how a body would fall naturally. And those sticks, they are not concealment. There would have been so many sticks. There would have been so many leaves. Why wouldn't you have used all of that? I mean, winter, there's so much debris on the ground. There's no excuse. And generally speaking, concealment is much more. There's much more coverage when we see concealment. How sus would what look? Scott, I don't know what you're talking about now. Yeah, so look, okay, yeah, I agree. Maybe the gun's too loud and yeah, he wouldn't want to use that. But realistically, um, I don't think a body size pile of leaks, not really, because I mean, there would have been a lot of debris there. And I mean, even Cicero, again, I go back to the state's own expert, even Cicero said that there was other stuff that would have been used. And that's what they tend to do. Um, And even if he was spooked, then why did he pose the bodies in that way as well? So, and we can't say, well, he started to cover the bodies, but then he got spooked, because the placement of those sticks is angular. It's just it would look disturbed, but it wouldn't look any worse than what we see, Scott, which is, bodies splayed out with sticks framing them, like and why did he have time to put an asterisk of sticks on the blood spot? It just, usually it would be throwing sticks, it would be pushing debris, and those sticks, they're not thrown, they're not piled. It's unusual. I think I'm gonna die on that hill. It is super unusual. Well, even if you don't think it's an asterisk, it's pretty close to an asterisk. It's not a pile of sticks. To me, that's not a pile of sticks. There is at least some thought gone into how those sticks are placed. And most people, I don't believe, would put sticks on a blood spot. You would assume that the blood's just going to seep the into the ground. I don't know why you would do that. Or again, wouldn't you just ruffle up some leaves? Like, I'm thinking like when my dog does a number two and we're walking and I've forgotten the bag, that's all I do. Like, cover it up a little bit, like, I don't think you would just put sticks down and then they fall on each other. Like, it doesn't seem like a natural formation to me. And yeah, I don't, it's just too many. That's the thing. If it were just that, if there were just the sticks on on the blood spot that looked like that, you could say, okay, well, that's just a coincidence. But we're seeing so much more. Hi, Shelley. Well, the reality is that they were in a depressed part of the land, like it was kind of like a bowl shape, and I don't really believe that the person could almost have stepped on them. I mean, unless they moved the debris afterwards and we're not seeing the true crime scene, because it's pretty obvious, like that those are two bodies lying there. They're not discreet at all. 3% coverage is not going to make you nearly trip over a body. So I think that's more to do with, yes, like nature's bowl, like you said, Donald, yeah, rather than it having anything to do with the sticks. The fact that the crime scene investigator who was responsible for discussing the crime scene doesn't think that the sticks are coverage tells me a lot, because now I'm not using the defense's expert to back me up. I'm using the state's expert. So the state's expert said that the main reason that the bodies weren't found was to do with a tree and the positioning of the tree that hit it from the other side of the creek. He did not mention the sticks being the main thing, and he conceded that there were only 3% of the coverage and that wasn't consistent with, basically that there was other stuff around that you could use to conceal the bodies that wasn't used. I agree, Scott. I mean, we can say that then Cicero doesn't know anything either, but then there's no other expert brought forward to suggest that either. I mean, yeah, look, of course, I'm not suggesting that the experts do, but again, then aren't we falling into the territory that some of the conspiracy theorists do, where they're like, you can't trust anybody. You can't trust anybody in this case because everybody's lying. Cecil's deleted things from the knowledge sea, and Cicero doesn't know crime scenes, even though he's been, looking at crime scenes for 20 something years. And, it ends up being like so many people don't know anything. And I don't fall for that. I think Cecil didn't know aspects for sure, but I don't think he didn't know anything, you know. So yeah, look, my personal belief is that those sticks, and it's not just my personal belief actually. No, like my belief is that those sticks don't cover very much, as is literally everybody. 3%. Like why bother then if you're not covering them? Those sticks were not sold by the state's experts as concealment. They're far more consistent with staging alongside, well, and even staging, like if we look at the official definition, they're more consistent with posing and with arrangement and expressiveness alongside the posing of the bodies. A body doesn't fall with an arm up and an arm down and with a leg underneath. That's just not how bodies fall. And so when you put it all together, there's too many indicators here of expressiveness. And then when we also look at the clothing change. I was actually looking at some research last night, which I'm going to put into an upcoming video about sadistic offenders, and it's ticking all of the hallmark features of sadistic offenders. It doesn't consistently tick every single part of a sadistic offender because of the lack of sexual elements. Not lack of, I mean, obviously there's a sexualized aspect to it, but there are some elements that it probably doesn't tick. Right, Mustang. It definitely isn't the first time that someone posed or staged a crime scene, but staging and posing a crime scene in an expressive fashion is an indicator of sadism. It's not an indicator of a first-time offender. It's not an indicator of somebody who kills the girls because he's panicking because he's got caught sexually assaulting them. So you're putting them into bushes, sure, pretty normal thing to do. Putting them in the creek, normal. When I say normal, you know what I mean. But yeah, Libby was dragged only a short amount of time, like a short period. But again, when you would see a body being dragged and then just sort of left, you wouldn't again expect that the arm positioning as well. There were very small drag marks. Yeah. So you can't become a sadist at middle age. So if somebody is sadistic, there would be evidence in their past of sadism. Now, even with Russell Williams, he escalated over time, and there were indicators of personality attributes that would be more consistent with sadism. He is the rarest of rare. And even he does. And when they searched his home after he was apprehended for the murder of the second victim, they found a cataloguing of evidence. And yet, when they search Rick's home, they find nothing. Nothing. But Mustang, they don't. That's the thing. They actually don't. Oh gosh, sorry, I put the wrong comment up on the screen. Jenny's comment was interesting, but I don't know what she's saying. Tomato. Oh, there you go. Okay. They don't, Mustang. They can hide it, but they don't hide it so well that even when they're apprehended and searched, that there's nothing found. So if you think of BTK, he hid it incredibly well. He was able to get away with murder for decades, right? But the reality is that once they searched his property after he was apprehended, that there was evidence there. Same with Bundy, same with Russell Williams. There is no sadistic offender historically that I could find where once he was apprehended, they weren't able to find evidence of the crimes in their possession, or at least some evidence. Yeah, but the phone isn't going to be the only evidence, though, Mustang. The phone, again, you don't just have one era of sadism. So if that phone may have had stuff on it, sure, okay, but then where is the other evidence? There would be other evidence, and there really is no other evidence. Yeah. Um, Look, I'm not suggesting that sadists can't exist in plain sight, Scott, but we're talking about sadistic homicide, like offender. So there are, again, it's like psychopaths, right? So 1% of the population, I believe, is the statistic I've heard. And there are psychopathic people who live in plain sight. They never murder people. So yes, given the right circumstances, they could. And I think what you're referring to here with the Nazi guards is that if they hadn't been in that situation, they may never have killed or acted on their sadism in a way that would have actually caused harm to someone. So you create the right conditions. Yes, you could do that. So again, though, I would be surprised if those people didn't have some narcissistic traits or other indicators that they enjoyed control of others and humiliation of others. And Rick hates control. He hates control. He literally crumples under control. This is the whole point here. When he's put in a management position, he collapses. He doesn't take it on and feel really proud of himself that he's got that, unlike Russell Williams, for example. So he doesn't like prestige. He doesn't like status. He doesn't like dominance. So if he doesn't like dominance, then he's, again, we're already ticking the opposite end of the spectrum to sadism. So again, I'm operating based on what we know. And of course, I've never met Rick and I haven't read every single file or his history. I'd love to. But yeah, you're not weird to say that, Scott, because again, this suggests that those movies are not, I mean, they're bizarre, they're gross, baby, but like at the end of the day, so many of us have watched stuff that's bizarre and we're true crime enthusiasts, a lot of us. So even if we don't think he was a manager, Mustang, the fact is that when he had increased responsibility, he would collapse under the pressure of it. So Rick shows no indications of dominance. Okay, so we don't see any indicators of dominance, which, straight away is inconsistent with sadism. It's not the only aspect, of course, we're not relying upon one characteristic, but then when we add into that we don't hear about any sexual deviance, no skeletons in his closet. I know there are the employee person that went on a channel and talked about it. Look, I hate to disbelieve anybody's story, but that person's story, it's hard to verify. And I still don't understand why that person was going to Rick's house for barbecues if they were worried about the person's safety. And on top of that, they didn't actually describe any actual deviant behavior. They described a bit of like creepy kind of sleazy behavior. I'm not condoning that, but it wasn't anything that we would actually describe as deviance. So there is nobody in 3 years of Rick being incarcerated that's come forward and actually had a story of a very disturbing encounter with him. Now, given he's been married for a long, long time, if he had engaged in deviance outside of this marriage, you'd think that those people would come forward because they wouldn't have been in serious relationships with him. And we hear this in lots of other cases. We hear, escorts come forward, people who were, the other woman in a relationship come forward. We don't hear any of that. So Rick has no history. I agree, Mustang, that there might not be people like Charles Manson or, some of the serial killers are incredibly rare. I agree. So you can be rare in the types of crimes that you do, but in terms of personality attributes, he's not as rare. Charles Manson, he's not as rare. Whereas the expectation that a man who literally has no history of doing anything harmful towards anybody at 44 just wakes up and decides, hey, I'm going to just kill two girls and then I'm going to stage like pose their bodies in weird, like humiliating ways. And then I'm going to go on and live my life as normal until I get caught. And then I'm going to decompensate. And then on top of that, if we think about 2019, if he's a sadistic killer, he wouldn't have felt guilt and then, ended up in a psychiatric facility because of guilt, because that's not consistent with sadism. And see through, I guess, yeah, the reason I don't believe that he's a guy that snapped that day is because, again, it's inconsistent with the crime scene and the crime itself. So if it were a snap, a reactive, angry kind of, moment, we would expect that the crime would look quite different. The crime scene would look very, very different. It would be more chaotic. It's more likely that he would actually come forward and be caught early. This has the hallmark features of sadism. Hey, Bees and Mama, lovely to see you again. So, yeah, I just think that we look at the evidence, when we look at historical crimes and forensic, profiling, yeah, you would see a lot more. Yeah, he did come forward. I agree, but he didn't come forward to confess, and he didn't continue to come forward. So in all those years, so it's not a crime of passion or snapping. Those crimes look very different. Thomas Bruce, we still haven't talked about Thomas Bruce, but we will. But Thomas Bruce had elements like Russell Williams, in that he was a more dominant person. There were certainly some descriptions of, difficult personality attributes that, again, in and of themselves wouldn't predict what he would do. But also the crime scene, chaotic. It wasn't staged. It wasn't a sadistic crime in I mean, and when I say sadistic crime, because I think everyone thinks sadistic crime is like, terrible crime, horrible. Yeah, you can be a non-sadistic crime and still be horrible, but there wasn't those sadistic elements that we see in the crime against Abby and Libby. I'm missing some of the things here. Yeah, but Shona saying maybe something was going on in his life, felt out of control, wanted power and control again. Though we don't tend to have a sadistic episode in our lives, so yeah, I mean, yes, people crack and they go, "That's it." If we think about the school shooters, those are good examples of people who crack. They've had enough and they take it out and they're reactive and they don't go about it in a kind of manner that we see in this crime. Now, again, I still believe with school shooters, I need to do more research. I don't know enough about school shooters, but there's also going to be other personality traits there that would probably be a part of that picture. I'll look into that. I am interested in the school shooters. I'll probably have to look into that once I'm not doing as much Delphi content. But yeah. But the thing is, Shelley, would you have an alibi for a weekday afternoon when you have a day off work? I don't. Like, I have a day off work tomorrow, and between 1 and 3 till school pickup, no one knows where I am. In fact, I did a video a little while ago where I went on some trails to try and recreate the Bridge Guy video kind of angles, and I was there on my own. If something happened there, then nobody could be my alibi. Hey, Josh, nice to see you. So, like, realistically, a lot of people wouldn't have an alibi for the middle of the day on a weekday. At least I wouldn't. I do a lot of things on my own in the middle of the day on weekdays when I'm running around doing errands or I'm at home. It's yeah, I wouldn't have any alibi there. The thing is, Shelley, they couldn't prove he was the guy on the bridge. And my feeling is that because the phone information doesn't prove that, I would love to see the geofencing information, because I believe they wouldn't have been able to prove he was the guy on the bridge because his phone wasn't there. at that time. And interestingly, what they say then is his phone wasn't on the trails, it was at his home. Well, then they would have used that in trial if his phone hadn't been there, because then it would suggest that he used his phone, that he left his phone at home, and that would be suspicious. It would be consciousness of guilt and whatever it is, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think there's a lot more to come out there. Um, but people don't see me, Shelley. So like when I was on the trails in my local area, nobody saw me, like because I there weren't many people around. It was quite a quiet trails, like the Delphi trails, and I mean I probably would have been quite remarkable because I was literally posing with a camera and talking and stuff. But still, yeah. The phone was missing, Mustang, but the geofencing doesn't need the phone. It needs doesn't need any of that. I mean, they had his meat hex, which is the equivalent of an IMEI number. There's no reason. Hey, Fishy, nice to see you. There's no reason they couldn't trace the phone without having the physical phone, and they pushed to get they pushed to make sure that geofencing information was not included in a trial. The state pushed to have it out. Why? Because wouldn't that be so supportive of them? If he didn't have his phone on him at all that day, then that would suggest to me that that would be really good evidence for them to say consciousness of guilt, and yet they didn't use that. And they were really, really trying to push away that information. They tried to not even, that was one of those delayed discovery things as well, as far as I could tell as well. Like there was something that they didn't want in that geofencing. I'm convinced of that, to be honest. Whether it'll ever be looked like, whether it'll ever be seen or not, I don't know. It may be too late to be able to fully decode it. But if he was looking at his stocks that day, then they should have been able to see his phone at the trails. And if they couldn't see his phone at the trails, like they made out, well, not that they made out, like Holman made out, well, then they would have used that at trial. Then they would have no issue with the geofencing information being used, because it would show that he lied. He didn't have his phone on him. To me, that looks far more like somebody who is suspicious, right? Um, yes, Scott, definitely. We'll go back over geofencing. We're going to go back over all the old topics again, the timeline, the geofencing, and stuff like that, for sure, because that was done a long time ago. So the issue with the phone is that the geofencing would have to help one way or another, either side. If the phone wasn't at the trails at all that day, that would help the state. It would suggest that he left the phone at home and he lied in his statement to the police. If the phone was at the trails during the time of the crime, again, they'd want to use that. So my sense is that his phone is at the trails earlier in the day, like he said it was, and his phone indicates that he leaves before the crime occurs. And that is why the geofencing is being pushed out. Remember, his phone information was provided to ISP in 2017. I believe it's been searched, it's been looked at, and it's been buried. Again, I'm just alleging this. I don't have proof of it, but it just doesn't make sense, right? There's some dodgy stuff going on with the phones. They were really trying to push to keep geofencing out, saying that it wasn't accurate. It's actually very accurate, and cell tower stuff isn't, but geofencing is. And the fact that they tried to keep that out, that they made actually, because McClellan says it's not accurate, it could be within like hundreds of miles. That's actually not true for geofencing. So either he was misinformed or they were deliberately obscuring it, because the defense didn't know that sees through. If you ever look at my geofencing presentation, it was one that probably the one that actually made this channel kind of start to get a bit more interest. Was I talked about the geofencing and how even at a more recent interview, Andy Baldwin didn't seem to realize that you could actually trace Rick's phone. They were too focused on third party suspects. They didn't think actually that information would help us plot what is going on with Rick during the day. And what Holman says, I've got another video on that. It doesn't make sense. He's misunderstanding geofencing. I don't know if people just didn't understand geofencing. I definitely don't think that the defense first of all, they didn't get a lot of that information till the last minute. They were still arguing over it in August of 2024, just before trial. But secondly, I don't think they had a digital expert look at the geofencing, and finally it was suppressed. They weren't allowed to look at geofencing. But the defense were arguing more for the geofencing to be used for looking at the third-party suspects, the unidentified phones. But yeah. Yeah, so I think I think that the geofencing has the potential to free Rick Allen, but the issue being that the geofencing is anonymized until you get to the later stages, and so given that I feel like potentially some geofencing information may have been got on the fly in the early days, and it's possibly part of the not part of the actual official discovery. But even so, you just need a pattern analytical mind like me, and I would look at it for hours. Hey, quietly, nice to see you. I would willingly give up hours of my time to like try and create a behavioral timeline of the phones that were there that day, because I'm pretty convinced that Rick's phone was there and then left, and he left before the crime took place. But I don't have that information. If we ever get that, I know Critter Mama will come in and talk about fog data science, and I still haven't done a video on that. I'm sorry, Critter Mama, but yeah, I think that there would definitely be information that could be helpful about Rick's whereabouts. Anyway, that's my geofencing video, so feel free to go back and check that out. Nothing much has changed in terms of my thoughts on that, so you could watch it as is, but I'll definitely redo it again as well as a live so that we can talk it through as well, actually, because I think back then I didn't have lots of people talking in the chat, so we can maybe play it again and then have a chat about it as we're going through it. Okay, guys, I've got to get to work now. That time flew. I was only going to do half an hour, but lots of things to talk about. So I will get back to you guys with more timeline stuff, with geofencing stuff, and I'm going to continue with the sadism angle as well. Shelley, the defense didn't agree to not having the geofencing at trial. They were requesting that it be at trial. It was suppressed. It was suppressed, and also they didn't have access to all of the information even in August of 2024. So, hey USA Libertarian, good to see you. I'm with you, quietly concerned. I'm with you 100%. I think that geofencing holds key. I remember when I was talking about all this stuff early on, I remember that Kara was really interested. Kara Weineke was really interested in this and in making sure that this stuff was looked into. So I think it is definitely an angle that needs to be looked at. So good to see everybody. I hope you guys have a wonderful end to your weekend and start to your week. And yeah, I'll see you guys later in the week, and I will do some more little videos if I have a chance this week. I think I'll make one tonight about sadism probably, and then I'll get onto the timeline and the geofencing as well. Always good to see you all. Yes, I will agree to disagree, but always happy to chat with you guys. Yeah, we'll have way more lives. I know lives seem to be the energy of this channel, so for sure, feel free to join the next one, and we'll do a few more like this that are just open discussion, and maybe I'll send the StreamYard link out if anyone wants to come and chat with me in one of the upcoming lives. So good to see you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye. See ya.